welcome to Flipside. Sincere apologies for starting behind schedule. We just had a little technical hitch and we've dealt with it. I'm Daisy Leah Sikidi, your host. On Flipside, you know, we tackle pressing issues and shed light on important topics that affect us all. So today we'll return our attention to a crisis that has been silently gripping Nigeria, threatening the very essence of our existence. And that is a food crisis and, of course, the unprecedented poverty levels that we have attained. Nigeria has long been regarded as the giant of Africa, a nation rich in culture, resources, and potential. But however, behind this facade lies a harsh reality that millions of Nigerians are currently facing on a daily basis. The effects of this crisis have extended far beyond cursing hunger. Rather, it has unraveled the social fabric of communities and left countless families trapped in a circle of poverty. And on show today, we're going to be talking about these challenges Nigeria is facing, these twofold challenges, which is the food crisis and the poverty status that we have attained, because it's interlinked. Last week, the World UN dealt with a World Food Day. They also had a day to talk about poverty and the issues like climate change and efficient distribution system and all of these, and how it has affected us and how Nigerians are now becoming poor because of it, were things that were focused on. Although the World Food Day dealt much more on water. But today on the show, I have two very renowned resource persons that I'll be talking about this discussion today: Nigeria's food crisis and unprecedented poverty levels, unprecedented poverty status. That's our topic on the show today. Seated very close to me, wearing a very similar color to mine, though a lighter shade, is Collins Odiase. You've had him on the show before. He's an economist. When he was on the show, we brought him on Business Rendezvous, I guess, yes, where we're dealing with the old crisis of the POS when those people were cashing out. So we had to bring him here because he's the PR of that organization. But today, I'm glad to have you on Flipside. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
He's also a farmer who has now turned to a money man, so he does both. Then someone else you've seen on this show, and of course Business Rendezvous as well, is Samson Edeki. Now, Samson is someone I know way back to like secondary school, JAM lecturer kind of way back. He's a farmer, he's an agro consultant. Yeah, so Samson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Samson, I'm going to be starting with you today. Can you explain the current food situation? Would you call it a crisis in Nigeria? And of course, how is it affecting us at the moment?
Okay, we have never really had it this bad, because though we know that we are food insecure before now, but the situation has really compounded with the recent developments, being the removal of subsidy, and there was no alternative given to the farmers. So when you go to the market to go and buy food stuff, I think you don't need statistics to tell you that the cost of food materials are really at the high side, and everybody is just trying to see what they can do to remain profitable, because this has really eroded the profit of the farmers, and even the purchasing power of the consumer, of the buyers, really be reduced by virtue of this new development. So in the presence of all of this, we are trying to see what we can do, because we don't choose the situation. We only work in the situation given. Thank you very much.
But what are the main curses of this, Mr. Collins? What would you say has led to this to be so severe and so bad at this time? Because there's so many economic policies coming up, and with so many promises that it's going to make life better. The floating of the naira, the fuel subsidy removal, all of these policies were supposed to boost our economic stability, but it seemed like it's not working. So how did we get here? What's the problem?
Thank you very much. I think first, let's know where we are. We currently have about 25 million Nigerians that are food insecure.
Wahala.
As of today. And what has led to some of all these things? One, farmer headers crisis.
Yeah.
You know, food comes from the farm. And how do you get this food to the market when the people cannot go to the farm? So that is one. Two, climate change. The climate has changed, and the weather pattern before, the way it used to be, rainfall and all of that, everything has changed. So it is very difficult for farmers now to even predict when to go to farm to plant. So it's another major cause of food crisis. And the most important one is inflation. Prices of food, goods and services has gone up. And so our people can no longer buy anything from the market. You go to the market now, a product you probably got it for 300-400 naira 2 days ago. You are going there today now, they are telling you 600-700 naira. And these people, they don't have the purchasing power. So all this put together has really increased the food insecurity, and that is where we are.
Okay, now, Samson, at least you're a consultant in this food issue, and the lack of food has also led to poverty. Okay, before I ask this question, I remembered as a child, we had this church program where the man came and he did a lot of prophesying about the end time. It was really small. And then he said one thing, and that thing stuck. Oh, there were two things though. The first one was the world was going to go very digital. A time would come where your wristwatches would even be able to share your location. It looked very ambiguous in my mind. And that time has actually come.
Yes.
And then he also said another thing, that you will have money, you will go to the markets, you won't be able to buy anything unless you have the mark. Okay, I know that mark is something else, but it was a church program and I remember those two things.
Yes.
I even sold the book. Now, people go to the market, it's not like they don't hold money. I had this picture in mind that we would go to the market, would want to buy things, but they'll tell me, show me your mark. But I don't think it's going to be this physical mark anymore, because we have money now. We go to the market, but we don't buy anything. It's not because we are not holding money. Our money not rich. So to get the money that will be enough to survive, maybe that was what he was referring to. But that was just something I just remembered. It crossed my mind and I said, that was true. I heard this thing will happen a long time ago. But regardless of all these policies that have been suggested, nothing seems to be working. Recently, we were even told these borders were going to be open, and they were opened. At least I know of semi-border. And we heard they are going to flood the market with rice, that even by Christmas this year, it will be so cheap. As of last week, I priced rice. As of this week, you don't add money. So are there government policies you would suggest as a food man, as a consultant in this sector, that will boost the food production, food security, and in the long term handle the issue of poverty?
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much for that question. You see, the issue of food insecurity in Nigeria, it has been the lack of will from the politicians to actually enforce what they have brought to bear. Most times you just hear them talk on televisions and they are just mere rhetorics. But one thing is certain, if we must get it right. For example, I think during President Goodluck Jonathan, way back, when they were removing some part of subsidy, Edo State was one of the states that was used as a pilot phase for liquefied natural gas. And many vehicles were converted to liquefied natural. As we speak now, liquefied natural gas is, I think, 200 naira per kilogram or so. So we were expecting that when this policy of removal of fuel subsidy was coming up, we will have similar thing, that there should be alternatives. But these are part of the policy some and some we've been having consistently for over the years that have gotten us to where we are. For example, I think it's in the financial sector, you see what happened during the pre-COVID, post-COVID rather, the financial crisis. That has really also contributed to where we are today. But one thing is sure, we can't continue to cry. I don't really belong to the group of those that lament over and over. So, but if we must get it right, we must go on drastically with it and fight it headlong by way of making policy and ensuring these policies work. For example, the cost of production of the food itself has gone down because of everything now, the cost is up. For example, insecticide, there are options, there are alternatives that you can use in place of the synthetic insecticide. There are raw materials from the natural source. that you can, yeah, from plant stocks too. You can extract something from them and use them as a pesticide. So ordinarily, we would have expected that since these things are going like this, we want to remove subsidy. Subsidy will finally be removed. Government should look at alternatives so that the shock, that we know that subsidy cannot be sustained, definitely will not be sustained in the long run. But when you are removing something, you must look at the effect on people and look at alternatives so that people can share between alternatives. It won't be too much on the economy.
Interesting. Okay, now you did say you're not one of those who would lament so much. And if government is going to do their part, I also am of the school of thought that it's not a government thing alone. No. So I'm going to ask Mr. Collins, what suggestions would you give to the private sector, to the international organization, for us to actually be able to arrest this unprecedented poverty levels that we've attained? For a country called the giant of Africa, we seem to be giants that are quivering on their own toes. The exchange rate as of today is about 1,200 naira to $1. But if you go to a country like South Africa that are not giants, maybe not this big name, there are a problem. They aren't giants, but the exchange rate to $1 is so low. Like it's less than 20 rands to $1. And these are Africans. They didn't fall from the sky. They're just like us, I think. So what would you also expect or suggest individuals, private sector, and the international organization to do to also help us deal with this?
Thank you. This is a very important question. I would say everything still revolves around the government. I think one important institution that we should look at is the microfinance institution. Yes, these people are very close to the farmers. And if they are empowered, if they are given money, the microfinance and banks, they still need money from the CBN and other commercial banks. So if they can get money at a more cheaper interest rate, say single digits, and this money is made available to them, then they can as well take it to the farmers at maybe just a little fraction on that interest, maybe say 10% or 11% for them to be able to carry out their farming activities. I think this is one way that the private sector can come in to help mitigate this food crisis. That is one way. Another way, when you say international organization, the truth of the matter is that we have international donor organizations that are willing to assist, but the government of that particular country also has to be on ground for those people to be able to come in. But in summary, the private sector, they have a lot of role to play in ensuring that this food crisis is able to come to a level that we can manage it. And like I said before, financial inclusion, financial institutions that can drive financial inclusion to the grassroots. And one of them is the microfinance. And even the agency banking that we are looking at these days now. You can go to your village now, you just visit one small kiosk, and you are able to withdraw money from that place. So if these things are properly harnessed, you see that it will help us to reduce the food crisis and poverty level.
You want to add something to that?
No, yes, just let me add this. You see, I think it was David Ben-Gurion, the Prime Minister of Israel, the former Prime Minister, that said agriculture in Israel is 95% technology and just 5% labor. So until we can, that is how the private sector can come. But you see, government is more like a driver. It's like a pointer. When you point towards a direction, everybody follows. So if you are doing something and the government policy is another way, it will be counterproductive most times. So the government just need to show the way that, okay, probably meet organizations that produce tractors that are into technology and focus attention on it, and there's continuity on it. Over the years, you'll see that most of these problems will not be there. So Israel got, despite the fact that their country is arid, is in the desert region, they are ahead of us in food production. Because every crop you see in Israel on their farmland has a pipe that is supplying it water. They are actually the founder of drip irrigation. So if we can really imbibe it's happening here in Edo State, there's drip irrigation, but at smaller scale, they are not significant. So they can't really impact on the global, on the general economy like that. So that is where government needs to harness this whole thing, put them together, and let's have a focus. And I think with time, we will be able to overcome this whole challenge.
It's quite interesting because the former administration was supposedly focused on agriculture. In fact, the former administration used to even suggest for professors to go back to the farms.
Okay.
So with all the talks and supposed focus, it seemed like it still didn't yield much.
Yes, that brings us to what really is food insecurity. You see, food security is not just availability of food alone.
Oh.
When food is available, it's not enough to say food is, the people are food secure. Do they have, is the food affordable? So there are many indices of food security. We have availability, affordability, safety too. The food must be safe. If you look at the global food index, Nigeria ranks at 107th position of 113th country. So if you look at for safety, I think we rank, it's only Egypt that is higher than us. So but in terms of affordability, the food is there, but can the people buy it? The cost of production is high, and you can't expect because I have produced so much with high cost that you will get it cheaper. Yes, there is law of demand and supply, but that law sometimes the economic, the law of economic implication of production, wherein the cost of production you must make some markup on it. It cannot erode it. So many people just believe that when the food is produced, everybody will get it. You probably, yes, I know you go around Benin, you've seen some people shade probably banana or plantain on the table. They will be getting rotten there. Nobody buys and it will get rotten. Because the woman selling that plantain, she has done her own mathematics. I bought this thing 5 naira, I can't sell it 4 naira. Despite the fact that what you earned is 4 naira, and what you are ready to pay is 4 naira. So once the buyer and the seller does not agree on terms, you see wastage comes. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, Board, also, do you really think, because someone I talked with off camera is of the school of thought, that if government invests more in agric, not only in the availability of the food, ensuring that it's sustained, that it's not just for the now, then we can finally arrest the issue of seasonal food production because we have surplus to store. Poverty will be dealt with. But I find it difficult to relate food security and poverty. Are they linked?
I don't know.
They are related. For when you don't have money, what is poverty? Poverty is hunger. I want us to get it right. Poverty is hunger. That is the simplest definition you can find anywhere. Poverty is hunger. And where do these hungers come from? Not necessarily food, even healthcare. If you can't afford basic medical services, that is poverty. You can't get clean water. It's poverty. No shelter to lay your head on. That is poverty. So there's a relationship between poverty and food insecurity. And let's take it to that food insecurity itself. Go to the north, Borno, Yobe, and the northeast now. You see that about 1.7 million of the children there, they are malnourished in those three northeastern states. And so poverty and food insecurity, you can't separate them. You can't separate them. Because when the people, when they can't eat, they are poor. When they are poor, they can't afford food. So you see that they meet at a point.
Okay. Yes, I think I quite agree with Mr. Collins. You see, I think there's another term now using, I think, multi-level, multi-dimensional poverty. So before 2015, we used to hear extremely poor based on the purchasing power parity of $1. If you cannot...
To a naira.
Yeah, to a naira. If you cannot spend $1 in a day on food and your basics, you are regarded as poor. That was then. But currently with the 2017 purchasing power parity of $2.15. So I think it has really, they've seen it that if you cannot spend $2.15 in a day, you are regarded as poor. But on the multi-dimensional poverty scale, that one, many indices were used. We have a deprivation on a monetary term, which is the purchasing power parity. We also have deprivation in education. We have deprivation in social amenities. Those in the villages who doesn't have social amenities, no matter the food you eat, under this multi-dimensional poverty scale, you are regarded as still poor. So you see that the yardsticks, the indices used in measuring these things, that is what actually open the whole the whole data and see that they really screenshot into it. If you see, I think 39%, if you measure poverty based on the multidimensional poverty indices, 39% more people who would not have been poor were regarded as poor. So poverty is beyond just eating, though it's one of the indices. It's a common thread that run through. Yes, if you don't have money, you won't be able to get all of those. So I think it's something that government should look into holistically to address.
Interesting. All right, now here I am wondering if there are other countries that have been so terrible in this state, they've been in this state we are in currently, and they've succeeded in coming out of it. I'm thinking, but I think I'd have to ask my guests if they have knowledge of any of such. But before we do that, the World Poverty Day, which isn't today at all, that was sometime last week on World Food Day. The focus was about water. And I think we'll just quickly push play to it, even though it's past, just in commemoration of that day. And safe water is food. Without water, there's no farming, there's no food, there's no nothing. We have flooding. I'm not talking about flood, though. I'm talking about good water. So let's push play to that one, go on a quick break. When we return, we'll talk some more. All right, so we're talking about food insecurity, food crisis, Nigeria's food crisis, and unprecedented poverty. Like, I'm not talking about poverty, just poverty. The poverty is at worrisome dimension. So you could be earning 100K and you're poor, you're regarded as poor. By the time you take your rent, can you really feed well? By the time you clothe yourself, those three basic necessities, can you really afford it and still have extra with your minimum wage and the rest? But before the break, I was making suggestions. I was asking a question if you are aware of any country that has been through the times as bad as we are, and they've come out of it and they're thriving. Are there any you know?
Yes, we've heard of China. China's situation was so bad then. I think my lecturer in my days in the university, they will keep telling us how bad China was and how they some things we cannot say on air. Yeah. So, but you see how their government came and started sending them abroad to see technology, to see things. And they will send them, bring them back, send them. They will import a technology, dismantle it, look at it carefully, and reassemble it. They study system, they study different countries that are progressing, who are doing it, and they follow this thing through consistently for years. And you see the result today, they are up. India too. India were poor at the time, but they began to look inward, look at their own technology, how they can innovate and do things differently. And today, they are there. But Nigeria case was, we were good at the time, but just that a season came that people were just thinking probably everything will continue to be good without deliberate effort to make policies and make headway. So that is where we are. So until there is deliberate effort, if you look at the institutions we have today, if you look at their program, their functions, they are superb. But that will to do, many of them are just, there's no funding coming to them. Government is just paying salary and the rest. If you look at ADP, for example, I've worked for ADP for about 4 years as a contract staff. So if you look at their goals and objectives, if government can really kill into these things and let them consistently do these things, we won't be here today, honestly. So it goes beyond just formulating policies that will keep in policy bank, in quote. It goes, we must be able to drive these things through and have the will to do them.
I think in addition, just to add to what he has said, I think we have good policies and programs in this country. The problem has always been implementation. And look at, apart from these programs, you have institutions, specialized institutions. I think we have about 3 universities of agriculture in Nigeria. Abeokuta, Makurdi, and Umudike. These universities were established primarily to focus on agriculture, on how to bring about food security. But the purposes have been defeated now. Go to those places now, they do management courses. Some of them are even, they've started introducing medical courses. And these were not the original plan. So we must go back to the original plan of our institutions and programs and begin to implement them as they were initially designed. Until we go back to that point, we'll remain where we are.
The only one we even have in Edo College of Agriculture at Igor.
That was where I got ND there.
Oh, really?
Yes, when we were there,
They are trying to.
Now you don't have a school.
we were forced to have a farm. So I had my small ridge then.
Wow.
My name will be there and my month's number. In the morning before I do anything, I will rush there to go and check. How is my cowpea doing now? Vigna and Bukulata. How is my cowpea doing now? How? So you see the way we were tendering those things, the way we were as if we were just petting them then. But these things are no longer there. Go to universities of agriculture now. People don't even have farm again. I stand to be corrected anyway.
Okay, but let's wait for the reform because they are currently on it.
I think they have a ranch, that ranch or something. They do the cattle. There's no cattle
they are
there.
hungry.
Yeah.
They will be very skinny.
They
will bring them eventually.
Yeah, they said they will.
I hope that these cattle will not be streamlined so only the northern people taking care of them.
Yeah,
we will be the ones taking care of them. I mean, there's no business that should be relegated to a particular region.
A cow is almost over 800,000 currently.
My brother, let's see.
Since you are working with them there,
he gets information. Okay, at least College of Education has opened up now. They have turned into a technical school, a federal one, and I heard it's bustling now. They've not started fully, but they're good to go. Okay, now let's talk about something else a little bit in the status poverty side now. Not food basically, but what initiatives now, not really the policies, too many policies, what initiatives would you suggest to this current administration to bridge the gap between the wealthy and the poor? Say the poor have been the ones doing jackpot things, so they are looking for money to jackpot because they know when they travel out of the country they send money back home and they convert the money, it's going to be quite a sum. And if not for even those many people abroad, we won't even be seeing this foreign exchange. The foreign currencies are hard. They are difficult to get. That's why it's so expensive. It's few. Only crude oil. That's where we get our foreign currencies from. But then again, what can we do? The money to jackpot last year, if it was 5 million, for this year now, it's 10. Times 2.
Sure.
It's quite becoming a very expensive one. So my question is this: what initiatives would you suggest to this current administration to bridge the gap between the wealthy and the poor? The gap is so wide.
I think there is one. I think Nigeria was a party to one treaty, one agreement, Maputa or something, about agriculture, that 10% of their total GDP should be put into agriculture. But I don't think Nigeria has really embraced this over the years. So one thing that the government must do, actually, you see the GDP of Nigeria, though is the biggest in Africa, but the people are not carried along in the production of those goods and services. It's majorly through crude oil. So we must find a way to engage the people in all of this? We just hear that 1 billion naira was gotten from crude oil. How many people produce it? The people are not affected. No money enter the pocket of people in form of employment or technical services. So we must look at how to bring money that we get from crude oil and channel it into the real sector where many people are engaged. So by this doing, you see that by so doing, many people are going to be earning from it. The like of UAE, United Arab Emirates, Dubai, we hear of Dubai today, they are oil producing country too. But I think this is what they have done. When they said the oil is not a free-for-all fair where everybody just, national cake, where everybody take their own and use and inflate contracts and the rest, and you see the money is gone. They try to put it into specific sectors to generate revenue for people where many people can be engaged. So when you get, you just sell off crude oil and you get large sum of money and you spend it anyhow and inflate prices, inflate contracts, you see that many people are, you are making few people to become rich, while the majority of the people are getting poorer by the day.
Interesting.
So I think I'll come in this way, bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. First, my area may be a bit different from the way my brother said. Yes, first, the leaders must be ready to change. When I say they must be ready to change, what is their take-home pay per month? Just recently now we heard the House of Reps that they want to get just a single vehicle for about 116 million naira. Is that not too much? Is that not extravagant? This money can be channeled into real sectors of the economy. Education, agriculture, our major focus for today.
Infrastructure.
Yes, if these monies are channeled, even power.
Yeah.
Like the fuel I burn in my office now, every week is about 25,000 naira. Every week.
And that is even small compared to some.
Exactly.
Okay. In my office, 25,000
Imagine this kind of office.
Okay.
How much we burn. We're on 24/7.
Okay.
It's insane. Power. That's another one.
When I say my office, one of the offices, so the second one, the same 25,000, that is about 50,000 naira every week. That is what
Times
I
four.
burn. So if these critical sectors like the power and others are taken care of, imagine I have close to 15 staff now, and that money that is being expended on petrol now is free for us. We can bring in more people to do little work for us, and they get paid. Invariably, we are reducing the poverty level, and we are trying to bridge the gap between the very rich and the poor, because we don't have a mediocre class in this country. So it's something that government must be ready to do, and they must face it holistically, not messy or just coming to the public and say you want to, subsidy is gone, this is gone. What do you have on ground to cushion the effect? It's not the 25,000 naira or 8,000 naira conditional cash transfer that you send to the poor of the poorest. This money, do they get to them? I've not seen anybody in my area, in Benin here, that will tell me that he has gotten 8,000 or 25,000.
Even if it gets to them, will it continue?
So let's be realistic and let's face the problem of this country headlong.
Okay. I have two questions before we go on another break quickly. Because there's a way to say it in Benin, like gie. Sharp, now. What can we do now to cushion the effect of all of this? Because December is just a few weeks from now, and it comes with a lot of celebrations. I don't think people have reasons to celebrate, to rejoice. And Christmas is to be something that we look forward to. Christmas, New Year. So even if you're not celebrating Christmas, you will celebrate New Year. Even if you're not interested in both, you're a very traditional man in Edo State, Igwe is always in December. So there's so many activities at that time of the year. So, but what can we do of Oge at the now to deal with this sharply before all of these long-term suggestions? Because we need to be able to buy rice, whether we like it or not.
The truth of the matter is there's nothing good that comes easy. And when you say doing it again, like what you just used now, to be honest, I doubt if it will be possible to
it to be
achieve
effective.
anything tangible in the next shortest possible time. Because you can't tell me, now, I bought a bag of rice last week from my neighbor, 49,000 naira. So I don't think that price will go down between now and December.
You even bought 49, you tried.
I bought 49,000.
Yeah,
Because she's my
Nigeria rice, pure Nigeria rice.
She said it's Mama Good also. So she said it's Mama Good.
Yes, yeah, I'm with you.
From my end, you see, there is no fast rule to, there's no shortcut, to things. What we should do now is what we should have done yesterday, and it's not too late still. Like I just gave the historical perspective of our policies from Jonathan, from the administration before him. So when they were removing subsidy at the time, they brought gas, cooking gas from kerosene as alternative. When they were removing subsidy from fuel, some subsidy, they had to introduce liquefied natural gas.
Which is very expensive now.
Liquefied.
Yes, not compressed. LNG is the one we use at home now.
Okay.
That one is compressed.
Yeah, that one is different. Yeah, that's cooking gas.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they have a station opposite.
Yes, one of those stations. Okay, because that one used to be what everyone was running to. That's what they are using for cars. They were using not cars. They were using it for generator recently. When the fuel crisis came, people were converting their gen. It was the same cooking gas.
Yes,
that is cooking gas.
It's the same one that they were using for the generator.
But the one
1 kg.
they dispense in the filling station.
It's the CNG we are hoping to go
LNG.
to. No, LNG. Okay, we'll confirm that won't go on that break because.
we may confirm.
Okay,
so we must look for alternative. That is the whole essence of the discussion. When you look at something that you don't have control over them, most of these things that are really spiking up our economy, spiking up inflation, they could be something that are imported we don't have because of the difference in dollar to naira. We must look inward to see how we can create alternative immediately so that the effect will be cushioned. So until we come to a time where we look, you see, I don't want to go into that. When the president was saying they want to remove subsidy, I was waiting for probably a time where they would tell us how they are going to remove it. There was nothing. So until we come to a time where we are looking at alternatives, bringing many options, looking inward, creating options, we may not go headway. Have any headway. Interesting.
We're going to go on a quick break. This break is not a short break. I said quick break. Like we're going now. But it's going to be a little bit long. It's a short documentary on farming, on modern farming. Because when we come back, my last question is going to border on that, where I'm going to be asking my guests if there are any old farming methods. Everyone has been talking about greenhouses. We should leave the bushes. We should start thinking about greenhouse farming. But are there some of these old practices we should retain if we want to keep our foods available and cheap? But let's quickly get a documentary from the UN, and we'll conclude this show shortly.
About 10,000 years ago, humans began to farm. This agricultural revolution was a turning point in our history that enabled people to settle, build, and create. In short, agriculture enabled the existence of civilization. Today, approximately 40% of our planet is farmland. Spread all over the world, these agricultural lands are the pieces to a global puzzle we are all facing. In the future, how can we feed every member of a growing population a healthy diet? Meeting this goal will require nothing short of a second agricultural revolution. The first agricultural revolution was characterized by expansion and exploitation, feeding people at the expense of forests, wildlife, and water, and destabilizing the climate in the process. That's not an option the next time around. Agriculture depends on a stable climate, with predictable seasons and weather patterns. This means we can't keep expanding our agricultural lands because doing so will undermine the environmental conditions that make agriculture possible in the first place. Instead, the next agricultural revolution will have to increase the output of our existing farmland for the long term, while protecting biodiversity, conserving water, and reducing pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. So what will the future farms look like? This drone is part of a fleet that monitors the crops below. The farm may look haphazard, but it's a delicately engineered use of the land that intertwines crops and livestock with wild habitats. Conventional farming methods cleared large swathes of land and planted them with a single crop, eradicating wildlife and emitting huge amounts of greenhouse gases in the process. This approach aims to correct that damage. Meanwhile, moving among the crops, teams of field robots apply fertilizer in targeted doses. Inside the soil, hundreds of sensors gather data on nutrients and water levels. This information reduces unnecessary water use and tells farmers where they should apply more and less fertilizer, instead of causing pollution by showering it across the whole farm. But the farms of the future won't be all sensors and robots. These technologies are designed to help us produce food in a way that works with the environment rather than against it, taking into account the nuances of local ecosystems. Lower-cost agricultural practices can also serve those same goals and are much more accessible to many farmers. In fact, many such practices are already in use today and stand to have an increasingly large impact as more farmers adopt them. In Costa Rica, farmers have intertwined farmland with tropical habitat so successfully that they've significantly contributed to doubling the country's forest cover. This provides food and habitat for wildlife, as well as natural pollination and pest control from the birds and insects these farms attract, producing food while restoring the planet. In the United States, ranchers are raising cattle on grasslands composed of native species, generating a valuable protein source using production methods that store carbon and protect biodiversity. In Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Nepal, new approaches to rice production may dramatically decrease greenhouse gas emissions in the future. Rice is a staple food for 3 billion people, and the main source of livelihood for millions of households. More than 90% of rice is grown in flooded paddies, which use a lot of water and release 11% of annual methane emissions, which accounts for 1 to 2% of total annual greenhouse gas emissions globally. By experimenting with new strains of rice, irrigating less, and adopting less labor-intensive ways of planting seeds, farmers in these countries have already increased their incomes and crop yields while cutting down on greenhouse gas emissions. In Zambia, numerous organizations are investing in locally specific methods to improve crop production, reduce forest loss, and improve livelihoods for local farmers. These efforts are projected to increase crop yield by almost a quarter over the next few decades. If combined with methods to combat deforestation in the region, they could move the country toward a resilient, climate-focused agricultural sector. And in India, where up to 40% of post-harvest food is lost or wasted due to poor infrastructure, farmers have already started to implement solar-powered cold storage capsules that help thousands of rural farmers preserve their produce and become a viable part of the supply chain. It will take all of these methods, from the most high-tech to the lowest cost, to revolutionize farming. High-tech interventions stand to amplify climate and conservation-oriented approaches to farming, and large producers will need to invest in implementing these technologies. Meanwhile, we'll have to expand access to the lower-cost methods for smaller-scale farmers. This vision of future farming will also require a global shift toward more plant-based diets and huge reductions in food loss and waste, both of which will reduce pressure on the land and allow farmers to do more with what they have available. If we optimize food production, both on land and sea, we can feed humanity within the environmental limits of the Earth. But there's a very small margin of error, and it will take unprecedented global cooperation and coordination of the agricultural lands we have today. An agricultural revolution can start with you.
Okay, so that's how we just needed to share that idea, that information, before we call it a wrap on the show. But before we go, we'll just have two questions. We were arguing about something earlier, and we've all learned and we're better for it. We have the compressed natural gas, which the current administration is so focused on. It's quite cheap. We have the liquefied natural gas, which was what he was talking about for cars. He's very correct. Yes. Then we have the LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, the LPG. That one is the one we use for cooking. So there are three different types. But before we go, I was asking, are there any of the old methods you would advise in farming that we should retain?
Yes, now that things are changing, mostly we are opting for climate smart agriculture, and it's sometimes a bridge between the exotic practices that improve method and the traditional method that we see that can help the farmer to actually overcome to adapt to the current realities of climate change. For example, you see the plant spacing, plants that are resistant to diseases. You also see that, these are methods that we must be able to look inward and adopt.
Sustain.
And there's a way locally we control pests that have been improved, and scientists have actually looked at it. You can extract the effluent from even processing of food products like cassava and the rest that can be used to control weeds, to control pests, like some plants as Adirata indica, the extract from the seed. So most of these things are there. We must be able to look inward, and also even while we are looking at technology, we must look inward first and develop these things so that we are all better off for it. You see, many times the problem has always been that we copy outside
and we don't
know how to paste, like a man said.
So I think
on the final note,
yes, on the final note, I think another old method of farming that we can also adopt now, or we can continue with, is intercropping, where emphasis is now more on plantation, oil palm, and all of that, monocropping. So let's go back to intercropping, where in the same farmland, you can also plant your maize, cassava, even in addition to the plantations, the tree crops that are there. Yeah. So while you harvest this one, so your tree crop is still there. So the next year, you can rotate from cassava and maize to probably other crops, still on that same farmland. So that will help us to continue to farm a particular land over and over again. Thereby, we are also increasing food production.
Efficiency.
I want to say thank you to both of you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So much information dished out. We have a long way to go. The plan for a better economy is not a quick one. It's not a quick fix. Yes, you could do a little palliative to cushion the effects, but if you really want to deal with it, it's a long plan. But government needs to be more open to us, tell us your ideas, and get the right economists to dissect this idea, give us predictions, make it real, discuss it before you jump head first into it, and then we are halfway and it's as if we're sinking and drowning. Look at things holistically before you adopt. Don't just copy without knowing the right way to paste. So how many trainings are Nigerian government doing to let the young Nigerians learn tech? Our Nigerian boys are so good at tech, and we are not developing these ideas well enough, so we're turning the tech ideas to internet fraud. Engage these people, use them, train them, commit them that they will not just jackpot and run away. They're going to go and come back. So it won't just be a brain drain issue. You would also be able to bring back your people when they've learned better. Let's be truthful to ourselves. Government is not inheritance. You're not gathering money, winning power so that your child can take over and win more and gather more. Let's make Nigeria great. If this country gets destroyed, even the children you're gathering the wealth of the nation for won't be able to live in it. All right, I'm going to leave the show at this moment because we'll be back again next week. So the discussions do not ever end with another very pressing social issue. Make it a date with me next week Wednesday at exactly 1:30. I'm Daisy Leah Sikidi. Bye.